Find out how you can go from this to this with one simple DIY project. Before I fully start this video and start explaining my entire process, I first want to just make sure I mention that there are also a ton of other videos out there that other DIY projects with the same idea and kind of, with a different process and things like that. So if you guys want to reference those as well to maybe best suit your situation and what you have, by all means do so. I just kind of wanted to make this video just to kind of document my progress and my process, the way I did this, and also potentially help anybody else out that follows me specifically and maybe in the similar boat as I am. So I've been wanting to get some type of light stand for a while now, but I'm not a huge fan of the ones that I normally see on certain YouTube videos or just certain videos on the internet, where they require a bunch of different remotes sometimes, or they're just I feel like they're their own separate thing, and I don't like how it's not integrated with whatever they have currently. So I personally am a big fan of the Philips Hue brand and all of their lights and things like that. I use them for my streams. I use them just for the aesthetics in the room. So I want to kind of somehow incorporate that into the already ecosystem that I have right now. Once again, just kind of cutting back on the amount of different remotes and things. So I really like the ability to be able to just change my lighting setup from a nice chill environment to more of a recording setup where it's nice bright lights, either from my phone or from the stream deck that I have, or even Alexa, which, by the way, can you set a reminder to like this video? Thanks. So there's a few different components that I ended up picking up for this DIY project. Some of them I just had lying around the house. Others I ended up having to get on Amazon. For the most part, a lot of these items were relatively cheap. You can always substitute these out for something else if you seem to have something else that works better, or just feel the need to kind of just switch it out. By all means, do it. But for the items I ended up picking up, all of their links to the Amazon listing will be down in the description below. So if you guys want to check out those and kind of follow along with my process, you can kind of do so and potentially pick up some of the other stuff that I personally already had, but maybe you don't have. So the items that we used today were a light bulb. Personally, I ended up using the Philips Hue light, along with a light bulb socket, pieces of cardboard, some tin foil, tape, a white cloth, a tripod, and a clamp. I started out cutting all of the pieces. I specifically wanted to cut them at angles so that when I ended up putting the pieces of cardboard together, they would kind of angle outwards and kind of create this outward going cube, if that makes sense. And I technically could have ended up just using a plain box and just keeping it squared off like that. But personally, I just find that whenever you use some type of light source, normally it starts from one single point and then spreads out. I kind of wanted to follow along with that shape. So that's why you'll see me cutting a lot of the cardboard sides out at an angle. So when I attach them, they have that outward shape. From there, we ended up taping off all of the sides. You could also use hot glue if you have a hot glue gun lying around, or if you know someone who does, that's also a great alternative. I feel like it might have made it a little bit more sturdy in certain areas, but I didn't have it, so I decided to just use some tape. I thought it ended up working out pretty well. Once we created the outer shell of the cube, we then needed to cover up the one side of it, obviously the smaller side, because that's where the bulb would end up going. So lucky enough, one of the sides that I have actually was pretty much almost the size that it needed to be to cover the back of the outer lining. All we had to do was just kind of cut off a little bit of the excess and just roughly kind of line it up. For this DIY project, it didn't really matter too much if there was some gapping within the actual cube itself, just because the inside of it was actually going to get lined with the tinfoil, so I wasn't really too concerned with any gaps. Once we attached the back plating to the cube, I then went ahead and cut a square in the back of it, big enough that the bulb was actually going to pass through. Once I cut out that piece, I then grabbed a separate piece of cardboard, kind of like a spare that I had on the side. I proceeded to create an outline with the socket. Now, what I was trying to do was Because the Sharpie was a little bit thicker on its point, I knew it wasn't going to be a perfect outline. The realistic outline would be a little bit further in. So I kind of just estimated, and with a X-Acto knife that I had lying around, I was able to cut out a hole. I had to do a little bit of some playing around with it and like fidgeting with it just to kind of get it to fit. But once we finally got it through and it was nice and snug, I then took that plate and attach 2 pieces of Velcro on the side of it. Now this is the kind of important part, that this is a little bit more personal for me, but you don't necessarily have to do it. The reason why I did this is because my idea for this light stand was that it was going to serve 2 separate purposes. One, to be a light source for whenever I was recording videos such as this one, and to also be able to use somewhere throughout the room for just aesthetic purposes. So potentially hiding it behind my TV or underneath my bed to kind of give some type of underglow. Just something that I was able to actually detach and just be able to use the bulb without having to completely disassemble the entire softbox. So by attaching these pieces of Velcro, it allows me to then kind of rip it off a little bit gently, obviously, because this isn't the most sturdy thing in the world. You know, with some care, I would be able to remove the back piece and have just that back plate along with the bulb attached to it, and I can use it for pretty much anything else I really want to without having to carry around the entire softbox. After that, we then proceeded to put on just 1 layer of tinfoil around the inside of the softbox. This is just so that when the bulb is on, a lot of the light that's in there is going to be able to bounce around and kind of become a lot more softer and a bit more evenly distributed instead of just being from one specific point. So in order to do so, I ended up just kind of putting the tinfoil in roughly and trying to get some type of molding of it by kind of forming it within the crevices and bending it around its edges. That way when I took it out, it relatively just kept its shape. I then took a glue stick that I had lying around, just put down a quick little coat on the cardboard, and then attach the tinfoil back on. And it kind of obviously fit right in because we kind of created that mold. And it stuck pretty nicely for the most part. Just the glue is mainly just to kind of get it to sit relatively flush against the softbox, and there's really no pieces of it that's kind of protruding out, if you will. And finally, for the last part, unfortunately my camera ended up dying, so I wasn't able to record the time lapse of it, but basically it was just time to attach the white cloth that I had. So what I did was I just roughly sketched out the general shape and roughly how long and wide the opening of the softbox actually was, and just cut out a strip, leaving a little bit of some excess on the outside so it can wrap around. And I had some just like those office clips that you use to hold papers together, and clip those on all of the sides, and that's pretty much it. A lot of the items that were used in this video were just things that were kind of lying around. A few of them, like I stated earlier, I had to end up ordering on Amazon, but they came relatively quick, and a lot of them were relatively cheap. So many of these things can actually be substituted with something else that you may actually have lying around as well. So that, I think that's really the beauty of this project, is just the fact that there's no right answer. There's no right way to do it. There's so many different ways that you can kind of put these things together just to create something that ends up working. Mine isn't the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world, but it gets the job done. I ended up saving a couple bucks on it, so at the end of the day, I think we did good. So yeah, I hope this helped. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on it and comment down below if you end up doing it, how you ended up doing it, what parts you ended up swapping out, and things like that. I'd love to hear from you guys how the project ended up going out. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been myself, Steven, aka TBEScreaM. I'll catch you guys in future videos. Take it easy. Peace out. Ladies.